Hey everybody, Bert Berger here again, and here we are with another repair in our repair guide. Today we're going to deal with delams, a skin blister. This time round we're actually on our way to Sri Lanka, so we're going to show you how to do the backyard version. So in this case we've got a little bit of a soft spot here. Looks very sort of typical of what I would do to one of my boards with the knee. Okay, we're going to attack it. So what we're going to do, we're going to drill a little tiny hole just at each end of the bubble. We're going to use a syringe, we're going to put some resin in, but we don't want to drill the hole too deep because the bubble only sits between the glass. Okay, so we've got the foam core, then we've got a layer of glass, then we've got 2 millimeters of balsa, and then we've got another layer of glass. And so the bubble is actually just where the balsa itself has kind of pulled apart. So the glass under the wood is still intact and that's connected to the foam. But the glass over the wood is bubbling up a little bit, and that's the bit we're going to try and take care of today. We'll have a syringe that we'll be using in a minute. We have a drill bit, which is roughly about 3 mil, approximately the same size as our syringe nozzle. We've showed you one already. There's another how to fix a delam version where we use a vacuum pump and we actually remove wax from the area. In the case of this one, I'm not going to take the wax off because we're going to rely on the force of gravity to push the excess resin out. The resin will not stick to the wax. So it's actually going to be more convenient at this point of the repair to actually leave the wax on. Okay, so from what I can see here, bubble's roughly this long. It's maybe 2.5 inches wide. So I want to put one hole. Really? That's either a dull drill bit. Okay, we're in. Okay, no worries. Just want to double check that our syringe fits in there. Okay, that's a super snug fit, perfect. Okay, then we come up to the other end. Looks like it stops around here somewhere. Okay, we're in. Perfect. Okay. Okay, I think I might use this end to start off with. Okay, cool. All right, now we've got to mix up a little bit of resin. Look, I'd say I'm gonna attempt to use about 30 grams. The method I showed you with vacuum, you can use just a lick of resin. You just want to slightly wet the inside. Literally, the vacuum pressure is going to push it down so hard, you don't need any extra. In the case of doing a gravity fix-up, you want to run a little bit more resin just in case. So I'm going to shoot for about 30 grams in this case. All right, let's mix up some resin. 60 grams, no, 30 grams. So what's that, 20 and 11.4, okay. 19.99, how's that, nailed it. Let's keep things clean. So now we want another 11.4, which would be 31.4. 31.4, not too bad. Okay, a little bit of a resin mix. Okay, let's see if we can keep the table clean. All right, okay, let's see if we can suck all this resin up. Okay, that's it. Okay, I want to just make sure my nozzle's clean. Last thing you want is to spill too much resin. Not that it matters too much because like I said, we've still got wax on the board. Even if we spill some, it won't stick. Okay, all right, that's locked in. Okay, I can actually see resin already starting to sneak in just from gravity here. So what's going to happen is you're going to be able to see our resin move through the bubble, and then ideally what we want to do is we wait till it pops out the other side. All right, so we got a nice tight seal there. We're going to start slowly forcing it in. And as you can see here, you can actually see, our resin migrating through the bubble. I can see it here already. Okay, so we're actually going to get a little bit of a bulge in this, so we've actually got plenty of resin. I can still see it on the move. I can now see it. I can now see it coming through to, all right, so that's the end of the line. We're out of resin. Okay, now what we're going to do, is I just want to put my thumb over the hole here, get a seal, press on it, and then I'm going to just slowly, and it's just now made its way. There we go. Now it's popped out the other hole. Okay, so, and it's just sucked back in again. The bulk of the resin now is right through this delammed area. It's sitting a little bit high because it's sort of swollen with resin. We've got a hole at each end, so any excess we'll be able to push out there. We've just got a piece of plastic. We're going to lay that on there. Any excess resin will escape out those holes, and now what we have here is a sandbag, and I'm guessing that's about 6 or 7 kilo, and we're going to drop that right on our job. Okay, so that covers everything. Yeah, I can see resin pouring out that other hole, and I can see resin coming out that one. Okay, so we're all good. In fact, there's so much resin coming out that we don't want to make a mess. So let's just have that excess resin drip over our tape here. Okay, and that side too, damn it. I've just taped up roughly to the wax line. Like I said, any excess resin on our wax won't stick, but I definitely don't want to be grinding resin off the rail just because I was messy. That resin's on its way across. Okay, so that's how you fix a delam with no vacuum. So the plastic's there, obviously, so the sandbag doesn't stick. The sandbag creates a very even pressure as the sand just follows the contours. And so even if there's a subtle depression there when we're done, it won't matter. So that sandbag is just going to hold everything down in place. It's going to push on that resin. That excess resin is going to squeeze out and pop out the holes on the end. I put about 35 grams of resin in. I would say at this point, 15 or 20 is running back out. Very, very effective way of fixing a delam if you don't have vacuum bagging equipment. Okay, that's good. We're going to let that sit. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll do the next stages.
All right, good morning everybody. So now we're going to see what results we actually got. All right, well. Yep, so that's a solid as all the way through. As you can see, we got a lot of excess resin there, dripped off the rails. So luckily I caught that in time with some masking tape. All right, so because we didn't remove the wax, all this excess resin is actually stuck on top of the wax. I've actually got a little bit on the rails, so hopefully it doesn't cause us too much grief, because the last thing I want to do is have to sand it off. Okay, all right, scraper. All right, that's nice. That resin's coming off nicely. All right, we got all of it. Beautiful. All right, so now I'm just going to remove a little bit of wax around the area, around each little drill hole that I made. And then we're going to do a light sandback. Okay, so D-lam stuck down really good, solid as a rock. That'll never cause anybody an issue again. So as you saw yesterday, I mixed up about 30 grams of resin for this. Look, it's my estimate that there was a good 10, 12 grams that had spilled out. So ultimately, you know, 20 grams of resin, stick back down an area, 40 centimeters long, 3 centimeters wide, you know, just as an estimate if you sort of got your own D-lam that you need to fix and you need to sort of guesstimate how much resin. Yeah, so you'll see that when I've done a previous repair like this and we used vacuum, I used 15 grams and a fair bit came out. So maybe I was lucky if I used 10 or 12 grams with the vacuum method and maybe 20 grams with the sandbag hold down method. So it uses a little bit more, results are fairly good. All right, so now we're gonna do a little bit of prep sanding. We've got a tiny little hole at each end. We're just gonna gently sand into that, cut a few patches of glass and just do a small little like repair, standard repair on these two little puncture marks. 80 grit, hard pad, and we just wanna dig out a small area to put a patch of glass. And we're in. I'll just give that a little bit of a wipe down. Okay, scissors, some fiberglass. What do we got? A little bit of 4 ounce in here. All right, so all I basically need here is just 2 small patches of glass, tiny little circles that just go on each of the areas I've sanded there. I'm going to do my usual trick, fold the glass in such a way that once I cut it, I'm able to get all my patches in one shot. Okay, oh, that one's a bit haggardy. All right, and here we've got our 4 little patches of glass there. All right, so now we're ready to, we've cut our glass, we're ready to just drop a couple of patches on here. We're gonna use 3 or 4 grams of resin. One of the difficulties there is it's hard to get an accurate brew. I've got some really good accurate scales here that measure down to 0.01 or 1/100th of a gram. But in this case, I'm still gonna mix up about 15 grams of resin just for the sake of making sure that my resin mix is accurate. Probably gonna waste 10 grams or more of resin here. So anyway, let's mix up some resin. Okay, so roughly about 10 grams of resin. .7, so what would that be? 15.6. Ah, 16.5. 0.9 of a gram. I'd like about another gram of resin. All right, mix her up. And again, it's always a good idea, put the resin on first, then drop the patches on. That way the air gets pushed out and the resin soaks up through the glass. If you put the glass on, then the resin on, you've got a way higher chance you're gonna trap bubbles. Okay, a few drops of resin. Okay, a patch. A bit more resin. Another patch. We'll just push our glass down to the bottom. Excess resin comes up through the top. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, push our patch to the bottom so our excess resin comes to the top. I have wax which is approximately 7 or 8 centimeters away from where I need to work, a little close, so I'm going to remove it so that I don't end up jamming up my sanding pads with wax. So we'll just Okay, all good, clean enough to go. All right, so our Makita sander, trusty Makita sander. Honestly, this is virtually a necessity for doing a decent repair, is a machine like this with a hard pad and a soft pad. If you're gonna tackle any repair, one of these machines is an absolute must. So look, this one would probably sell for a high $200 in Australia. You can get a decent one for probably around 90 to 100 that has a variable speed. Honestly, it is essential. 120 on a hard pad. We're just going to attack our patches, get them down flush. Okay, that's one. Okay, that's two. Then 240 on the soft pad. And really the only purpose of this is to remove the scratches of our 120 grit, create a slightly smoother finish so that when we spray on our clear, it sits better. Okay, so I just got a little bit of resin I spilt on there, so just chipping that off with a blade. That's all sanded back, nice and flat and smooth. Now what we want to do is just put a little bit of automotive clear on there to seal the weave. It's an automotive acrylic clear, single part mix. A clear lacquer with thinners, and so it has quite a high solvent content and a low solids content. What happens with a lot of paints is you apply them, and because there's so much solvent in it, as the solvent evaporates, makes the paint really shrink back. And what it'll do is it'll follow the contours, it'll shrink back into scratches, it'll shrink back into the weave of the glass. To get a decent finish, we're probably going to need about 4 or 5 coats of this. If we were using an automotive 2-pack, which is more like a resin, has a resin and a hardener, or a part A and a part B you mix together, has a way higher solid content and way less solvent. So it shrinks back way less. So where I'm going to be needing 4 or 5 coats of this, maybe even 6, an automotive 2-pack, 2 coats is all you need. Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to come back every 10 minutes or so and hit that with another coat. I've applied about 4 coats of finish coat of the automotive clear lacquer. Honestly, it's really simple now. We're just going to hit it with a little bit of 600 and we're done. So I've got some 600 wet and dry here, a little bit of water. Rub that and just blend in that finish coat, give it a little bit of a dull matte look. And okay, and that's it, we are done. Okay, so I'll just show you guys what it looks like. You can see there's a slight sort of dark shaded area, goes around here, goes past our hole a bit, comes back here. Everything's as solid as a rock now. Both surfaces are tied back together. It's filled, it's hard. There'll never be a problem here again. And you see that the only little bit of work you had to do, or the only scars, is just a slight puncture hole at each end, and that small amount of work in glassing. So that's how to deal with a delam. Now you can either use vacuum, you can use the sandbag. I thought the sandbag method was actually way easier, just slightly heavier. Like I fixed a way larger delam, so I would say 10 or 11 grams of resin was able to fix a sizable delam with vacuum. So even though this method uses a little bit more resin, you know, I'd probably say it uses twice as much. Using the vacuum bag is definitely going to get the job done lighter and tighter, but it's probably going to add about another 30 or 40 minutes work as well. So I was actually quite impressed. I thought the sandbag method worked really well. That's done for now, finished, ready to roll. We'll put it back in the fleet for the drive-through crew to surf and abuse and use.
Okay, everybody, so now you're seeing how it's done. Obviously, we've showed you all the steps all the way through. If you've got any questions at all, just leave a comment in the box below with the step number outlined, or If it's still not clear and you don't want to embarrass yourself, send us an email at whatthefucksberttalkingabout@sunovasurfboards.com.